a story for a website. It's kellymcnellis.com. Anyway, it's one woman. And I wrote a story and they published it. My story, My Steps to Wellness. And this was back in May 2018. So I'm going to read it to you. Now, at that time, I'm suffering chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, and full-blown menopause. And I lived on my own. I had nobody to help me, no care, no one to come and clean for me, nobody to come and cook for me, run a bath for me, anything like that. I was having to do everything myself. So I'll start by saying that I do not profess to have a cure, because what works for one doesn't work for another. What I can say is that the process I followed has worked for me. I'm not 100% back to me. I wasn't at 2018. But I was back to a better person than what I was. So, before I was struck down by glandular fever, leaving me with myalgic encephalopathy, I can't even say it, and chronic fatigue syndrome, ME/CFS, as well as fibromyalgia. But functioning again, I'm able to look after myself, take care of my home, look after my grandchildren, and look forward to progressing even more, stepping back into full-time life. That was me back in 2018. It is very rare that I suffer with intense pain now, and when I do, I can almost always point to a reason for it, like pushing myself too much by overdoing things in a short period of time. I can now wash, dry, and style my hair. It may sound simple, but when you've been put in a place where you're so fatigued, in pain, stiff joints, etc., trying to hold a hairdryer up is just impossible. It becomes so satisfying to be able to do it. In the few years after becoming ill, back in 2010, I went with the doctors for telling me. They were doctors after all, so they would be able to make me better, surely. I followed all of the advice, tried various prescription medications, had psychotherapy, talk therapy, CBT, GET, etc. You know the drill. My body rejected most of the medications I was given. I'd become sensitive to many. Then I realised that certain foods also affected me. For example, cheese and tomato. I love cheese, love tomatoes, but they started affecting me, causing pain in my body. Mouth pain and burning in my mouth also. So I'm just trying to scroll on. So I started researching online, looking up and reading anything I could on chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, menopause. I looked at nutrition studies to find out what foods I should be eating and what I should be avoiding. I even did a mindful nutrition diploma course. I talked with others who were living with these conditions. I experiment with natural herbal remedies such as red maca, ashwagandha, and even a fibro supplement I bought online, all with varying success. Red maca had me feeling like my old self within 3 days of taking it, but that only lasted 5 months before I had a major crash, because I was having to take an extra one to get the same feeling okay. Of course, it's important to consult your doctor before trying any supplements and things as well, so always do that if you're thinking of following the same thing, doing your own research. I gave up on the idea of doctors help me, and I carried on in my research to find my own answers and how to get my health back. The hardest part was being able to afford to try all of the natural and alternative remedies. I'd lost my job, so money was limited. I'm on the bare minimum, waiting to be assessed before they'd give me disability. That's the hardest part when you've got an illness. They should be giving you all the help in the beginning to help support that, to get you back quickly. But no, you're living on dregs, so you can't give yourself all the good stuff. It's a lose-lose situation, really. It had taken 8 years to get to this point in my life where I was managing my conditions and able to enjoy a moderate of life. I still lived alone, managed to do everything myself. But I'd even opened up myself to voluntary work just to get away abroad in the heat, because the climate was so different. So I worked voluntary 7 weeks in Centre Algarve in Monte Carapaccio in Portugal, creating a kids entertainment program for special needs families, as well as helping out in every aspect of the business there. But that helped. I was able to work. I felt productive. The climate and being what felt like a million miles away from home, it was like I felt human. So I never gave up hope. I just didn't realise that all those years ago that I didn't have the space to heal. I didn't have the correct advice or tools either. I've had to search and find those myself. And I tell you, it was a hard, difficult journey. But it's also very uplifting and enlightening when everything does start falling into place and you do start realising how much the food affects your body, how much people's energy affects your energy. I realised that you have to approach things holistically. So I qualified in holistic health as a holistic health practitioner. Did the studies. And you need the space away from your own environment also to find that focus. Sometimes you can't find it when you're stuck in it. So the areas to focus on in order to begin healing, I put 5 different things down. Your environment, looking at your environment, your work, your home, your family, stresses, responsibilities, friends, your social circle, underlying factors, historic things, traumas, recent traumas, fears, your beliefs, your values, your pitfalls, nutrition. You've heard the saying, you are what you eat. Look at what you eat and drink. Medication, help or a hindrance. Do you have any sensitivities? Record the effects of any medications you have. Find what works for you. Don't just accept what they're giving you for a particular condition. Again, we're all different. Activity. What can you do to keep moving? Even at my worst, I'm having to drag myself around because I cannot live in dust, I cannot live in muck, and nobody was going to come and do it for me. I've still got to get my bins out. Nobody's going to come and do it for me. It's like mustering up everything you have, and it's weighing up your battles, using a pacing diary I used to have on my fridge. Paced my time for my energy, making sure I had lots of rest in my day. So it's easy to get stuck in your illness, and I think I was very stuck in it, grieving for the first 4 years, because everything, you're losing everything. My employer ended up having to come to my home and say, we can't let you come back, because I kept trying to get back to work, get back to work, get back to work. They had to come to me. You don't realise how ill you are, and you're not letting yourself try and get better, because you keep trying. So you lose your job, you lose your work colleagues, because they are work colleagues, they're not work friends, they're work colleagues. Then you lose your friends, then you lose family. It's hard. You become very alone, very isolated. So it's easy to get stuck in that, to feel lost, forgotten, useless, to lose all hope of ever recovering. This in itself puts more stress on you and keeps you in a constant negative pattern of hopelessness. You might think you've tried everything and there's nothing left to try, but is that true? Are you willing to try something new? What do you have to lose? Start today by keeping a record of everything you put in your body, including the quantity and the time of day. Include the activities you do, everything from getting up in the morning, brushing your teeth, eating, moving. Grade how you're feeling from day to day on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being the worst. Record your symptoms, your moods, everything. When looking at environmental factors, I'm talking about anything or anyone who is draining, brings negativity, or is hampering your progress in any way. Eliminating these things from your life will help greatly. You just don't need those extra stresses right now. If it is a person, explain to them that you need to focus on you right now, so are trying to stay away from anything that may be upsetting or stressful. I know how hard it can be to deal with all of the above, especially when you're stuck in your own environment. unable to escape the everyday tasks and stresses. I know what it's like to be busy, focusing on everything and everyone else and neglecting yourself. You really need to be away from it all. You know that feeling when you're miles away from home, when you're on holiday and regular life seems so far away. That's where you need to be to begin your journey to wellness. And back at the time, I was trying to raise funds or get some kind of backing to do just that, the Spoonie Club retreat. And that was, my dream was to have a retreat. Mallorca, somewhere nice like that, that people could go in the sun for the climate, to get respite, to get healing treatments free. Paid retreats in order to give free retreats to those in need. Those with invisible illnesses, those with disabilities, those with mental health issues, a lot of different things to be catered for. Brexit hit, that dream was kind of bashed really, because you realise that, well, what's the likelihood of being able to get a property abroad in today's climate and do that? It's hard. So now we are Cafe Soul UK, and we found our home on TikTok of all places, but we found our tribe on TikTok. Beautiful, beautiful energies. We hear a lot of bad things about TikTok. We don't experience a lot of that. We don't. Very, very little of that do we have, and it's usually children coming in and being antsy. And now our dreams to be to have our own touring bus, touring van that we can sleep on and travel with my moderators. We've already started doing it, myself and my sister, who's also a moderator in our room, travel the UK. So we started up in Edinburgh, Glasgow. We're coming down the country by the end of the year. We're going to be in Berwick, I think, on September. But we're trying to get right the way down to the bottom, to Plymouth, where we've got subscribers on our TikTok. But then a bus. We can go for Europe, we can go everywhere, and we don't have to be static anywhere. We can bring the healing to you. So it's changed round. So, but wouldn't it be brilliant to have a place you could go to, little petting place for animals, easy to care for, volunteers help us work out, professional people in the healing and natural remedies and stuff being there to give and pamper people for that short little stay. Give them all the tools they need to go back home and create a new life, literally. So that was written on that thing. So that's where I'm reading it from. It says this piece was originally published at thespooniclub.weebly.com in the blog. I don't use that site. That is my site. I don't use it anymore. It was just to put all that stuff in. But quite often when you're focusing on all the stuff about your illness, it's keeping your illness present with you. So I stopped posting on it because there was enough information on there for people to read if they came across it, and I was no longer focusing on the illness. I'm focusing on life. So I hope it's been helpful. If you want to check out that website, it is thespooniclub.weebly.com, and there's a blog on there with lots of different information. But they've got at the bottom about the author CM. CM is a warrior who's battled ME, CFS, fibromyalgia for 8 years before finding her way to wellness through her own research and holistic approach.